We just got the Flight Sim update we've all been waiting for. The update we have all been waiting for, it's finally here. Microsoft has pushed out the update, the one that is going to finally enable VR headset support in Flight Sim. This is a really big deal, and unlike this headset, yours will probably work. Well, mine's just unplugged. This one should work, but I can't actually do that while recording this. That would be kind of crazy, but also slightly hilarious. But anyways, here's the deal. Flight Sim has been Microsoft's one of their biggest hits, right? This has been something that many of us have been waiting for, and Microsoft told us earlier this month that it got a 91 Metacritic score. 2 million players are playing, 50 million total flight hours so far, and 3.5 billion miles flown. And those numbers are a little old, so they're probably a little bit higher at this point. But the one thing that has been missing has been headset support. Now, Microsoft said, hey, we listened to feedback, and that's why we're bringing it to it. Like, there's no way they were building this out and thinking, we're not going to do VR headset. That just seems dumb. Microsoft is absolutely knew that this was going to be a big key requirement, and it is finally here now. It is technically in like a preview state or a beta, if you will, but you can go download it now. And if you're a Game Pass subscriber, the update's free. Even if you're not, it's still free because Microsoft is just making this a free update. They're not trying to nickel and dime you, which is really nice, honestly. But Flight Sim has just been a wonderful, I still play it quite a bit. I use a controller. I don't have the whole setup. That's maybe one day down the road. But what this is going to enable is true and proper VR support. Now, we have a little bit of video here from the announcement post, which is where I pulled this from, that gives us sort of a look. And obviously, you're going to get the two-sided, it's not going to look like that. That's representing the two different eyeballs looking at it. But it's going to give you that 6 axes of freedom that to look around. And it's going to be a really, really interesting experience. Keep in mind that your individual experience is going to depend on your graphics card, your PC setup, what sort of peripherals you have. But this is going to be a big step in the right direction for making this product just infinitely more fun, right? I do worry about a little bit of vomit comet syndrome. Like, my flying is not so smooth and calculated and comfortable, if you will. So my update is downloading right now. I'm going to give it a spin here in a little bit with my headset, but I am itching to give this a try because this is the missing component to building out a true flight sim rig. Well, I know some of us, or some of you more than likely, are going to spend some top dollars and put a whole bunch of screens and build out your cockpits. For those of us who just want to dive into the experience and not have to spend all that money, now VR headsets have a wide variety of price points. This is going to be a great way to do that, and it's relatively easy to set up at the end of the day. And it's going to support a wide variety of headsets. Microsoft is actually saying most mixed reality headsets are supported, including like the HP Reverb G2, Oculus, Valve, and HTC headsets. These are all going to be working with your with the rig. So that is just really good news in general. And of course, the fact that this is a free update, there was actually some genuine concern. I got a couple DMs thinking Microsoft was going to do this as a separate add-on. And so it's just good to know. I think that's explicitly why they put that in there. So again, just make sure that you are going to be careful when you do that, because I'm afraid that somebody's going to get sick. Just maybe sit down at first, which also brings up some really other interesting outside the box ideas. Just bear with me here. Microsoft has already said that Flight Sim is coming to the Xbox Series X and S. Remember, this is not technically the first next-gen only exclusive game that has been announced, but it is going to be one of the first to hit shelves that you're going to need the next-gen console. Now, they just announced VR support for Windows mixed reality headsets and a couple others for the PC. We haven't officially heard whether or not Microsoft will ever bring VR support to the Xbox Series X and S. We know for a fact that they can support it. Like, they have the technical underpinnings and capacity to do it. They would probably have to do it, I'm guessing, over USB Type-C. You could potentially plug it into the HDMI port on the back, but that's a little clunky because you have to reach around, pull in, plug things. But there is that USB-C port that is much more accessible, and so it'd be interesting to see if Microsoft would ever go down this route. I'd be curious to know, would you guys actually be interested? I would even be further to reach out and say what would be super interesting is if Microsoft made a Windows or a Microsoft mixed reality headset, either themselves or with their partners, that works with both the PC and the console. The console at one point, right, the older Xbox One, the limiting factor was honestly probably just the overhead compute. The Xbox One X maybe could have done it, but we know for a fact that the Series X at 4K 60 frames per second minimum, 120 frames, you guys know all the specs, absolutely can do that. With this title arriving in about 6 months from now, it doesn't seem inconceivable that Microsoft could potentially flirt with this idea, especially if they just make it simple USB compatibility. Just think about it from this perspective. They already have vendors who are making these things. If all it needs is let's just say USB Gen 3.1 connection into there. I don't know if they would go quite wireless. Maybe that's another option that works on both the PC and the Xbox. Then there's not as much intrinsic risk as it is for just building it out only as an Xbox Series X peripheral. That's I think the key here is, would they build it out as a high-end device for the console, or could they make it work both on PC and the console at the same time? Because if they can, then that lucrative option of actually including that support becomes much more viable, because then you have a much wider demographic than just the Xbox consoles. Yes, we know that Microsoft has sold tens of thousands. I don't know how many. We haven't heard official numbers yet. Hundreds of thousands, hopefully. Actually, I would be willing to bet potentially, hopefully into the millions. Anyways, but if they can have the Xbox Series S and X demographic along with the PC, building a headset, or at least getting their vendors to build out Xbox compatible headsets becomes an option. And so it'll be super interesting to see where Microsoft takes the Flight Sim and all of its technology, because they have this really interesting world. And I mean, quite literally the world in the game that is supported by dynamic weather. They have the live maps. They can do traffic and everything else on top of it with some of their other technology. So they've got a lot of options here. And this could be just a unique title that Microsoft brings to the consoles and the PC that can only be found in the Microsoft ecosystem. It's also a really, really good example of what Microsoft is capable of doing when it uses things like its cloud power technology. It uses local compute. It uses local sensors like this. So we will see what I'm wearing right now, which is a pretty sweet sweater. I don't know why I just did that. But anyway, so that's the big news, is that Flight Sim is out in VR. So I am going to go give that a spin here in a second. Other things that Microsoft has announced today while you're here hanging out, they also announced their games with gold. The only one I think you really need to be potentially worried about, is if you care about, is Dead Rising 3 is coming January 16th through February 15th. Pretty big title back in the day. And so now that is coming out as we round out the end of 2020 in the world of Xbox. I think, I'm not going to say they don't have any more announcements lined up for the end of the year, but after today, we're going to have the Christmas holiday period. And then next week might be pretty quiet, but I think in early January, I've already gotten a couple like Xbox accessory invites for CES announcements. So be on the lookout for what's coming at CES. Where I don't know if Microsoft is going to have I don't think they're not having an event, but I don't think Microsoft is announcing anything major there. But a lot of their accessory makers are, especially in the xCloud arena, or cloud gaming arena, seems to be the popular trend where some of these vendors are trying to capitalize on, at least in their press releases that they're shipping over to me ahead of time. That's how they're trying to capitalize on it and get some time on the calendar, if you will. So there we go, guys. VR headset support, big deal. Be on the lookout to see what's coming at CEX, some games with gold stuff, and we'll catch all of you right back here next time. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, jingle bells. I don't know. It's 2020.